All right, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. The first is, so anytime you speak, you've got to identify yourself because the secretary will be listening to the recording to do the notes. So I'm Julie DeMarco. We'll just go, Shannon, if you don't mind going next, we'll just go in the circle. I'm Julie DeMarco, Human Services Director. Shannon Goodchild.
Dan Van Horn.
Adrian Hoffman.
And Alder Crocker.
Perfect.
And I'm Marty Schwartz.
Oh, hi Marty, how are you?
Hi Julie, good, how are you doing?
Great, thank you very much. So unfortunately, Marty can't vote either. Oh, good.
And I'm Karen Roseman.
Hi Karen, how are you?
Hey Karen.
Okay. Hi.
Just made our quorum, that's great news.
Oh, wait, and Patty Donahue also here.
Oh, hey Patty, how are you?
Hey, good, how are you guys? I'm calling from the car.
Great, oh, that's nice. Thanks for making the time for us.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
So first thing on the agenda, well, next thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. We have a flag here. You guys can handle that any way you like at home.
Okay, we're standing up.
Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
Justice for all.
All right, thanks everybody. Alrighty, so on the agenda is the review of our commission charging goals. I think I'll read the charging goal, but let you review the goals unless you want me to read them. Maybe object to that? Okay, so the charging goals to ensure that Fairfield is a welcoming community where people with disabilities can lead inclusive and fulfilling lives, participating and contributing as active members of our town. I got to give Dan credit on that one for suggesting that we include that each agenda because I just think it's really important for the scope of our work. So this month we need to elect new offices. Ron Piccolo, who is our chair, stepped down as chair, although he's staying on the commission, and we are hoping to get a new chair and vice chair and secretary today. So until we have a new chair, I'll be running the meeting, so it really behooves you to get this done. So right now, Alder has agreed, actually I'm calling to see if there are any nominations, sorry about that, for chair.
I would nominate Vice Chair Alder Crocker.
Perfect, that's Dan speaking.
Oh yeah, sorry, Dan Van Horn. I don't nominate Dan Van Horn I nominate Alder Crocker
for chair. Great. Yep. I'm following you.
Okay, good.
So we'll need a second for that.
I second that. Adrian.
Adrian seconded. That's great. Any discussion? Any other nominations? Okay, so we can vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Julie, I don't know if I can vote on this. I'm sort of a liaison with Human Services.
Marty, yeah, no. Sadly, you and I can't vote.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, thanks, though, for checking that.
Okay.
All right, so Alder, it's unanimous.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you. And I guess
Thank you.
Thank you.
To fill the vice chairman role, I would nominate Dan Van Horn. He's done a terrific job working with Julie and me the last couple of months to sort of put things together, and nobody's more conscientious than Dan. So I would nominate him for vice chairman.
So you'll need a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so Shannon, and is that you, Karen?
Yeah, well, whoever, it doesn't matter. Shannon can do it.
Okay. Great.
Terrific.
Any other nominations? All right, we can get a vote there, Alder.
All right. Well, then, Dan, you are now vice chairman of the commission.
We got to vote on him first.
Oh.
He's dancing a
I'm
jig
sorry.
here. You can't see that, but he's like, yeah.
I'm sorry. I apologize. So we would have a vote then for Dan. Are there any abstentions? Any people that say that Dan shouldn't be? Or any other nominations?
No?
I don't hear any, so that's wonderful.
All right.
All right,
And
great.
Karen, you're the secretary. Do you still want to continue with that?
I didn't know I was.
Yeah, it was one of those, elected in kind of in a name only. So, that was way back in that first meeting. You made eye contact at that first meeting?
Is that what I did?
Yeah. So if you
Right.
don't want to be, we could try to see if somebody else would do it.
What does it entail?
Well, we have Sheila who takes notes and publishes the minutes, but it would be just kind of, as we're going through the meeting, making sure that we're following along the agenda and taking any notes that you feel are important to share with the group, other than minutes.
Okay. Does anyone else want to do that? I'd be willing to give it up if somebody was interested. Oh, it's pretty quiet out there.
Yeah, sure is.
I don't think that there's that much for you to do, Karen. Other than... Sorry, go ahead.
I gather that. I've kind of been in that position before, so that's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Terrific. Okay. Well, I guess then that calls the end to the election of officers. Unless Julie, you have any other ideas or points to make?
No, that's great. Congratulations and thanks everybody. That's exciting.
Yeah, great. Well, and thank you, Karen, for for continuing. I'm sorry, this is Alder. So the next point on the agenda was the SHU project, which was a poll that the students from Sacred Heart University did. I guess it was about 6 or 7 months ago, and we never really had a chance to go over the points. So if it's okay, what I'd like to do is pretty much just go over the top line points. I'm not sure if everybody's had a chance to read the 7-page document that Julie sent out. But the students did a fairly comprehensive job. They were able to contact 60 people. They're not here on this call right now because they were going to be on the one back in, I guess it was November, I think. But we didn't have a quorum. We didn't have enough folks, so they didn't go over it. But they did a fine job, and they were able to contact 30 people. So if it's all right, I'll just go over the top line here. And basically, there were 30 responses. I'm not sure how many people they sent it out to, but 30 was, it's a fairly good number. The majority of the folks who responded were women, with over 75%, and then about 20% of men. And then the ages were, give or take, over 75% were 51 and above, with the majority, 60%, being over 65. So we had a, good turnout. And there were obviously, a few people younger than that. With regards to who had a disability and who didn't, it was approximately 63% that did have a disability in some way. And the top disabilities that they mentioned were physical, which came in at about 50% of those. And then the next were cognitive disability and then a mental disability. And there were a few people who preferred not to specify. And then several people had, hearing or visual or bone or neurological, but the primary was physical and cognitive. So as I go to the next page, which would be page 3, the question was, how does a disability affect you? Does it make you feel in any of these following ways? And really the tops were nervous and anxious, isolated and excluded, which is something that I think we'll address in a little bit. And a few people did mention that in their comments on the further pages. And then the other two were different from others and then lacking in confidence. I think if you put those all together, there are some options that we can provide them from a resource standpoint and hopefully a future events standpoint. Obviously, the isolated and excluded and the lacking in confidence and different from others is something that I think if we all get together, in some form or fashion, we would be able to, help mollify that in some way. So the next question that was asked was, what resources does the town of Fairfield provide that are beneficial to people living with a disability? And there were a lot of answers, from I'm not aware of any to I'm not sure to the public health department, mental health services. A couple of people did mention that they understood the things that Fairfield does offer. But generally, I think overall, if we look at it, there are a lot more people that would say that they did not know really what it was that Fairfield offered people with a disability. So that's something from communications and an awareness standpoint that we, can hopefully pinpoint and then, make some effort to change, especially for the people that live here now, and then also as we think about it for people that will be moving here in the future. The next would be on a scale of 1 to 10, how accessible is Fairfield? And it was basically between 1 being completely inaccessible and 10 being completely. The primary was between 5 and 7, which was 14 out of the 30 responses, so almost 50%. Give or take, they feel that it's fairly accessible. A couple of people said it was, absolutely, and there were a few people from 8, 9, and 10. So I think that Fairfield overall does a good job from an accessibility standpoint, certainly from my standpoint, and I'm in an electric wheelchair, and I try to cruise around town. I don't go to the parks that much, but I cruise around town a lot, and, a fair amount of the restaurants are accessible, and for me, a lot of the sidewalks are. But that's in town and not necessarily outside of town itself.
Right.
Which is something that people do bring up. So the next question was, what's your preferred method of learning about the services and events that the commission offers? And pretty much it was a website or newsletter via mail, which is expensive and possibly something that we can look into, but then also a newsletter via email. So something digital. So I think that that's something that we can look at and hopefully get, 1 or 2 people to help put together as we move this forward. Again, after this, Dan, Julie, and I, just a few weeks, a month or so ago, put together a list of initiatives for discussion and conversation. So we'll go over that, and that will actually touch base on a range of these items that we're going over, but this in particular. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
This is Adrian. I know we said in the beginning that we weren't sure how many people were reached out to get the survey. One thing that just sticks out to me is the age demographic of the participants and whether we feel that's broadly representative of a population we want to try to serve. One idea that I have that I would be happy to help drive is I'm a member of the SEPTA, which is the Special Education PTA program, and I'm just wondering if we might want to consider sending this survey out to those parents, which might help us get a broader range of participation from all age groups, from preschool through potentially high school and even
21.
Just to help us make sure that, because I think there's so much good content in here, but my brain is saying is it's truly representative of all age demographics that the initiatives that we want to put forward might help serve. 30 people is great, but it's not a lot compared to the population of the town. So maybe we can help identify some additional groups. And I just saw the first thing that came to mind was maybe SEPTA, and I'd be happy to speak at a meeting. I spoke to the president before the end of the year, and she actually said she was excited about the commission and would be happy to have representation at an upcoming.
Great.
Adrian, I think that's a terrific idea. I spent 30 years in marketing, and when I looked at this, I thought, wow, 51 and above, with the primary being 65 and above, really does not, get into the meat of, families with, as you said, younger age children or younger adults. I think that's a terrific idea. What Julie, Dan, and I can do is to reach out to the folks at SHU, unless we still have the link, which we might. But if it's not active, then we can activate it, and then provide it to you to give to the folks that you're talking about. I think that's a great idea, because one thing that you know, what am I now? I'm 59. I had my accident at 55, and you know, I just know, basically, having gone through so many different rehab centers, that there are a tremendous amount of younger people that sadly have disabilities that are underserved, and it's not known necessarily what their thoughts are and how they perceive, you know, their lives moving forward and what they would like and look for. So I think that's a terrific idea. Thank you, Adrienne.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also may help us get a range of the types of disabilities folks are dealing with, everything physical, cognitive, social, emotional, whatever it may be. It may be interesting if some of the older children may want to speak for themselves versus the younger kids, their parents are more likely to do that. So I don't know if they had an age limit, you know, over the age of 18 or over the age of 16 maybe. We could encourage, you know, parents, of course, to talk with their children. But, yeah, I was going to say, if the Sacred Heart students want to continue, that's wonderful. If they're kind of done with this phase, if we could still access the survey and build onto the results, we could do that.
If I could add, this is Karen. In addition to the parents, perhaps we could get in touch with the high school students themselves, because I think they'd have a lot of input into this survey, as being younger folks who are dealing with disability issues all the time. So I think that might be another group to reach to.
And this is Shannon. Also, I have a son he's 29, he's on the spectrum, and I feel like that group isn't represented either. And there are some social groups, such as Casey's Place, and which target older, you know, like 21 and up.
Right.
We could always reach out. I know people, and Adrienne was speaking about SEPTA. I was president of SEPTA for several years, many years ago, 2 terms. So
that's great.
I have connections, and Patty as well, yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, that's a great idea.
I'd be happy to reach out to, like, Casey's Place, who, you know, is that older group.
I think it's a great idea.
I love identifying.
That would be great. The one thing that I think that the people from Sacred Heart don't have access to are those introductions. I'm not quite sure where they got their list from. So adding these 2 and/or additional groups would be great. Honestly, the more we know, the better. You know, it'd be great if we could, you know, target 500 people or something or more, but I'm not sure how many they really targeted and how many, you know, what the response rate was. If both of you would either send Julie and Dan and myself, or everybody, or the group, you know, your contacts or who you would like to contact, then we can just, you know, have a list of it, obviously, and then provide you with a link to provide to them so that then they could do the survey online. And then I think what Julie and Dan and I can do is, again, reach out to the SHU people and find out whether or not they would want to tally the results, or whether or not that's something, you know, Dan and I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be appropriate? Would you mind doing that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
That'd be wonderful. Honestly, the more younger folks I think we get, the better, for a lot of reasons. But thank you both for bringing that up. That's terrific.
The other things that stood out to this, Adrienne, that stood out to me in the survey with the data that we have is that a couple things. One is infrastructure, so like accessibility, and I would maybe group transportation as somewhat a link to that. The other thing that was a little bit disconcerting, again, maybe because of the age group that was the majority filling out the population, is the question around offering employment. And I don't think...
Could you say that again?
Oh, I'm sorry. There was a question at the end of the survey whether you would be, whether your place of work would be interested in offering employment opportunities for folks with disability, and there was an overwhelming no response to that. Now, I could maybe make an unfair guess to say maybe folks are retired, you know, if we look at the group, or just don't know. but I feel like that would be a tremendous, when I think about all the resources I see, and again, maybe because my children are younger and we haven't quite approached this yet, is there enough information about employment opportunities? And is this an opportunity to connect with like like local businesses and create, in addition to resources for social, emotional, and physical support, create resources where folks can access jobs. And I just think it's completely, as someone who works in HR, like this is absolutely despicable that we wouldn't have more representation of local businesses that would be willing to employ and train and offer employment. I just want to say, I hope it's just because we don't have a broad enough representation on this.
I think that's right. I think it's because we don't have a broad enough representation, and it's primarily 65 and above, and one would generally assume that more people are retired than working, and so that's why the answer no was most prevalent. I think the only difficult part would be how to spread that survey or questionnaire to the businesses, and that's something we can all think about. I'm sure that we could get the SHU students, and I'm actually, I don't know if anybody knows her, Amanda Sylvester over at Fusion. I'm over at the Trademark here, apartment building, and I literally look out on their building, and I've been in touch with her, and she had said that she would be open to me or us discussing getting her students to maybe do a project. So I'm hopefully going to chat with her in the next couple of weeks. But it would be great to find out from more businesses whether or not they would, be open and willing to hire people with disabilities. I completely agree.
Is there a Chamber of Commerce or some group of employers that meet?
Yep, there's Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development Office.
Yeah, I wonder, this is Dan. I just wonder if maybe that question on the survey was it's in the wrong spot, because it feels like the survey, first of all, a more broad representation would be helpful, I think, to understand what's going on in Fairfield and what the needs are and kind of what the town's perspective is. But I wonder with the businesses in town, if they're not necessarily residents of Fairfield, so they may not have been captured. There may not be a broad enough kind of capture of businesses in this survey. But that could be good for us when we talk about potential opportunities to talk about how we might approach the Economic Development Commission and other commissions in town to talk about those opportunities, because you're right, like that is something we'd like to see and be able to communicate that the businesses here in town are looking to provide opportunities for employment. But I had in terms of my aha with this was kind of it was, part of it was kind of this consistency of people not knowing what was available. But then I kind of thought about that in context of who was responding, 30 people responding, and 2/3 of the respondents were over 65. They may not be connected to the resources that the town's communicating through. So it probably would be better to kind of unpack this once we get more representation in the survey.
Yeah. It's Julie. I do want to say that I think the survey was good, and they did a great job. I have one thing to confess, that the initial send out was the wrong link, and that was my fault, but then we fixed it. But also, I think this survey has brought up other questions that now we know we should ask or ask differently. Mm-hmm. And it may be worth us taking the time to make a new survey, and if they're moving, that's the one thing we have to figure out, Alder, if they're ready to move on to what the next phase of their project is this something the commission can do? I think that could be something that we would be very successful at, trying to revise the survey and get it out there now that we have so many other resources.
Thank you, Julie. You're reading my mind, absolutely. Again, having spent a long time in marketing, I looked at this and I thought, I would have done this differently from the beginning with SHU and different lists, and making sure that we targeted, younger adults. Given what we have, it's interesting information, but it's not certainly, a full pie. I think if we were to modify this, and again, it doesn't have to be, 20 questions, 10, 15 maximum, but that we recreate it and then send it out again. I think that would yield us, more finite results that we could then act upon. This is interesting from a directional standpoint. People don't really know about they don't really know about the commission. They don't really know, what's available throughout the town. There's a lot that they don't know. So thank you, Julie. I'd love to work on that. And, if anybody has any specific questions that they would like to include, please email the group, or at least the people that are on this call now, and then we can put that together. And then, Julie, Dan, and I, if you will put that together and then send it out to everybody for review and approval, to take a look at it. What you'll find is that, I'm very inclusive when it comes to this. These types of questionnaires and conversations. I don't want anybody to feel that, we're in charge and we're going to be doing this and you can just listen. Not in any way, shape, or form. So if you've got questions that you think would be appropriate to ask on this to be revised survey, please send them in.
Would you consider, it's Julie again, sorry. Would you consider maybe having a subcommittee or a small task force of, maybe 3 members to think about this? You don't have to answer this in a second. To revise the survey and work on disseminating the survey, the information, the results, spreading it out there, and then reporting back to the commission? I mean, it doesn't have to be everybody all the time. We also have to be a little wary that any communication that involves all of us constitutes a meeting. So, sending everything to everybody is tricky. So, a couple things to consider there. But the more important question for me would be whether or not it's having a subcommittee might work for this.
I mean, I think a subcommittee would be great. It's a matter of do people on this call, since we're the only one out of our group that has a few more people, do people have the time to be able to do that? So, I mean, I think a subcommittee would be great. I mean,
Adrian wants to be in charge and run with it. Adrian volunteered to help.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then Adrian, that would be wonderful.
Okay, and Shannon said that she would do it as well.
That would be great. Then let's create a subcommittee that would work specifically on creating a new survey to send out to get a better understanding of, what we can do, what we know, what they know, and what they think we can do better. I think that'd be great. If you ladies don't mind that, I would love it if you could do that. That would simplify a lot.
I would also add, if anybody else on the call is thinking about it and not sure, just reach out to Alder, Shannon, and Adrian and let them know you'd want to work on that.
Does that include, I know we talked about the questions, but would that include kind of coming up with a list of other organizations like Casey's Place or SEPTA? Because I appreciate, I've never heard of Casey's Place, but I think that's exactly kind of organization we want to reach out to.
Yeah.
Good question, Dan. I think the answer is yes, that we shouldn't be limited. So if you have other ideas on places to send the survey to, absolutely, that would be part and parcel for this subcommittee to work on, not just the questions, but where to blast it to or where to send it to.
Churches, maybe?
Yeah.
I would be curious what tool they use as well, because if we get a good sample size, then it would be good to cut answers by age demographic. So if they use a survey monkey or
I think they did.
Or by parent.
I will send you the link.
Okay, but I'm happy
Yeah, you're right.
to take the lead to reach back out to the SHU students if you can provide me their contact information and just see if they want to continue to collaborate or say, sorry, we've kind of moved on, and that's okay, but if you wouldn't mind us using, that, because then if we then need to purchase a license for a surveying tool or something.
Right, okay.
Sure.
So, Alder,
I
do
do
you
know
want to
that
reach out? Oh, sorry. Did you want to reach out to Sacred Heart, or do you want Adrian to do that?
I mean, I have no problem doing it myself, but Adrian, if you'd like to do it, I mean, I did have with Julie and I think Ron maybe phone call with the student advisor, whose name I can't remember at the moment.
Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen, and she said she would be very happy to continue a project into 2023. So, Adrian, it would be great if you could call. Yes, please.
Yes, okay, perfect.
Perfect. All right. I'll get your contact information. Okay, perfect.
It's like, I'm so sorry. It's like I want to do everything myself because, not everything myself, but I want to be involved in everything because I'm really enjoying this. So, excuse me if I'm, working on the delegation. But Adrian, if you could, take charge of that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
No problem. Happy to do.
Great. So then I don't really think we need to go over the survey anymore. There was one other bullet point, which is updating goals and opportunities. And there was a sheet that was sent around, a PDF. Title was basically Initiatives for Discussion and Consideration. Would you mind if I started that off and discuss that, everybody?
No, please do.
Go for it.
All right, terrific. So the first section is for Julie, really, to help us get an understanding of sort of the parameters. But Julie, do we have an annual budget?
We don't. This, we don't have a budget at all. We have a budget for secretarial services for Sheila to do our minutes and postings and things. But if something comes up, depending on how much it is, we might have some wiggle room to be able to use part of the senior center and the human services department budget. It would just really, it depends on what it is and how much it costs. So,
can I ask a question about that? Mm-hmm. I know part of our charge was it actually maybe doesn't say in the function, but if I understand correctly, part of it was to say, is this viable? Like, is this a commission that would be viable into the future? Mm-hmm. Part of it could we're talking about a question of budget. Is that something for future conversations? Say, do we need to cast a vision or kind of create a budget that would be helpful for us to use in years down the road, so that the town would consider that as saying, these projects. So rather than saying, do we have money to spend, can we put like a creative bucket where, as these conversations come up, we say that may need to be something we project for a future budget?
Definitely. If there are things that this commission is doing that are ongoing activities, events, resource fairs, or whatever we're doing to promote the work or to give services or to get the word out there, those are things that we should be tallying up, and then that would be something we'd want to put in a budget for if the commission decides to go forward and petition to be a permanent commission.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, because if we sponsor events or if we co-sponsor events or if we want to do a postcard campaign as an example or create stickers or something, that's obviously going to cost money.
Right.
So it would be, $5,000, $10,000. I'm sure we're not going to get $50,000, but it would be helpful for us to then be able to plan, to actually have initiatives that we can follow through on as opposed to just ideas.
Yeah, no, that does make sense.
So, sorry.
Julie, is there a list of people with disabilities in Fairfield? I know that's kind of a difficult thing. I don't know how people read the census around here, but is there any kind of a list whatsoever?
No.
I think that's a question of legality also, and people not wanting to share their stuff, their status, and I'm not sure it's legal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a great explanation of why there's not a list. We could ask people to self-identify. There are some communities that collect names of people, in case of an emergency or in case of a storm, we have a list for that for social services and for seniors, but they self-identify for that. So that's something we could talk about. Westport has a list that they keep for the police department for that reason? Like if there's a call to a house, that way they know that there may be somebody with a mental health issue.
I believe, Mr. Shannon, I believe Fairfield has a program like that as well.
Yeah.
But it's like you sign up for it.
And we don't have access to that
Right.
from social services.
Okay. Just wondering to help, simplify.
Although this is
Yep.
Dan, were you thinking in terms of, like trying to communicate with that group within the community? Like if you were to want to
Yes.
promote something? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's really from a promotion standpoint and since we're the Commission on Disabilities, it would be interesting to get as many people with disabilities feedback and insight as possible, or their families, as opposed to just blanketing it. But I understand. But that was the answer, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this is Shannon again. Just how Adrian was talking about SEPTA and tapping into that, I believe we would be able to, I can't say 100%, tap into special ed through the board, through the Fairfield Public School System. If we reached out to the director of special ed, they would be able to send out blasts and email everybody in the district who receives special education services.
Terrific.
We wouldn't be able to get that list, but they would be able to send things out on our behalf. And I actually work for Fairfield Public Schools. I work in the Early Childhood Center, which is the special ed preschool. And I work with one of the coordinators, obviously, and I see Rob Mancusi quite often and speak to him. So
great. Yeah, that would be a huge help.
Does he owe you any favors?
No. I might owe him a favor after this, but
it's Karen again. I just think the people who get this blast, and I think it's a great idea, would have to come back and self-identify if they want to be involved. So just throw that in.
Okay. It's Julie. I have one more question. For all of you, do you receive the First Selectwoman's email update?
Yeah.
So that's bi-weekly. That was one area where we did put the link, albeit it was very buried in that lengthy one, but that reaches 27,000 residences
But I think with anything, people really read it all.
Oversaturated. I think the idea is great, but it is starting to get so long that I worry I do miss something, because especially if I'm reading it on my phone, it's 17 scrolls. So I love the concept, but I started to think, I was thinking just in the last one, I was like, wow, this is starting to become just the receptacle of almost everything in town, and I worry that it will lose its unless you're in those first 3 scrolls.
Exactly.
If you're in scroll 17, you're probably not getting to that. But,
That's a great point. It's fine for backup, but you're right. It can't be the primary.
Which leads us to the next bullet point, which is, would we ever be able to use the First Selectwoman's email list to send out information on our own to introduce the Commission on Disabilities, which I think we're all pretty aware that not many people are aware of.
I will ask. I suspect the answer is no, that we go through that. We could certainly try to create our own list and add to it, but, targeted to all recipients of that list. My gut says no, but I can certainly ask.
What if we were to not necessarily make a generic or a general ask, but if we had a specific request saying, hey, we'd really like the town to know about this commission that is seeking information from families and residents. But we went to the First Selectwoman and said, hey, would you help us put that word out? And almost if she were to say, I'll put this in the first 3, whatever, of the email. So we're not asking for her email list, but we are asking her to kind of
prioritize.
Kind of give a rubber stamp to say, hey, this is important.
Maybe people can opt in if they don't want to receive it.
Right.
Receive it if they do. Because there may be people that live in Fairfield that have family members that come and visit, and they know, I have a person in my family that lives here, but I have a person that visits me that I would love to know what's going on.
That's a great idea. And then people can opt into email lists online. Okay, I've got some homework to do. I'll find out.
Well, also, piggybacking on that thought is that, we could ask her whether or not she could, have a blurb on us, somewhere in the top, 20%, whatever, the first, as you said, thumb scrolls.
Yeah.
That would essentially be formally introducing us as an entity. And then, we write whatever it is. It's a couple of paragraphs. And then potentially, putting the link in there for the survey or, something else, but basically making a formal announcement through her email blast.
I just want to let you know Adrian's hitting the road. It's nothing to do with her new responsibility.
Thank you, Adrian.
Nice to see you. Yep,
Okay,
that's a me thing. I can ask her about that.
Okay, great. So then if we go down to the next set, it's awareness initiative. So we were just talking about emailing town residents or getting the word out. And I think if we can get that blurb, that would be great. Otherwise, we can send something ourselves. Obviously, direct mail is too expensive, and anything of that nature. I do have a quick question on the website, the town website, Julie. Somebody mentioned that it was going to be updated.
Yeah, we are getting a new, a new
Webmaster?
Yes, a new webmaster. Thanks. I was thank God Shannon's here with the right word. We're getting a new situation there, but I don't know when that starts.
Okay.
But as I'm looking at this, the awareness initiative number 2 is the community resource directory. I think we're going to do better getting news in the updates, the first select woman's update, if we have something to announce. So maybe that's the updated, new and improved resource directory. And oh, by the way, here's this commission. Let us know if you'd like to be on our list, and we have a survey. Like that could be a great announcement with the survey, with gathering names.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, because
Absolutely.
This is Dan. I'm wondering, backing up to when we were talking about the Sacred Heart survey, knowing that, like emailing town residents and kind of some of these initiatives, the awareness initiatives, are somewhat dependent upon what we're going to find out when we expand the survey. So it might be good to start with putting out this resource directory, and then in addition to that, inviting people to either respond to that survey or opt into to like an email list of some sort.
Okay. So also,
Yeah, absolutely.
If it's okay with you, I can send out again the community resource directory, which when you see it, don't judge. It needs updating, and this is our best effort for the time when we had it. So anything you want to add, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings, but don't judge. We did the best we could, but it really does need updating. So I can send it out to you all and then make edits and rework it based on how you like, what your suggestions are and what you think should be highlighted or refeatured. So, okay with you if I send that out?
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'd love to see that. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I've never seen it. I don't know.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
me neither. And that would be great. And, then I think we would ask for a subcommittee again, or somebody who would like to, take the ball and update it. And then we can, obviously publish it. I think once we take a look at it, we'll have a better understanding of what, either how to restructure it or what information needs to be added to it.
Perfect. Yep, that's great.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the others are, and we don't have the if you will, the resources at the moment, but it would be great to create a Facebook social media page, and Twitter. I don't really get on social media that much myself, but it's obviously something that will be important, I think, and possibly, would be a place to put up the survey as well.
Right.
So I think, as we move forward, we can think about that. I don't believe it's that difficult. In fact, I'll talk to a couple of friends I'm having dinner with tonight, unless anyone else, has the ability to do that. I don't really, just because, I don't really have the use of my fingers and my hands, so it's kind of difficult to get that going. But
Don't know how to do it.
Facebook is pretty easy. Twitter, I don't know.
I can tweet.
Yeah, I think Twitter's probably too much at this point. I think Twitter's too much, especially with that, big old Elon is doing. But if we got, a Facebook and an Instagram page, or at least a Facebook, it would be good to have that, as a baseline.
I do know, so we are doing something like that at our church right now. Not me. These two platforms are bigger than my brain can handle, but it does do a pretty good job in terms of communicating information. But I found that you need someone who kind of speaks the language. We had someone come in to help us, and they sat down and talked content with us, like what's the vision for what you want to accomplish, what's important to you, what are some key things you want to be able to communicate, and then they kind of created some content around that. That might be helpful for us to even think about what would our vision be for how we want to see Facebook used. And I would say Instagram's a good option too, because it connects with the younger generation.
Yeah.
Facebook connects with us older. Yeah. But Instagram kind of connects with like the school age kids, not completely, but certainly more so than Facebook does. But I would say if we're going to venture into that, we should see if we can find someone to guide us.
Yeah, somebody who knows how to do it.
Right.
Well, we do have a social services Twitter account. I think we have 12 followers. So I'm happy to use that and get the word out to that dozen.
Well, I used to work at an agency for a long time, and we created a lot of Facebook pages. But again, this comes down to budget. Who could do this for free?
Right.
And that's kind of the thing. So I'll talk to a couple of my friends tonight, and if anybody else knows anybody else or, any of the kids that, might have, honestly, would probably take them just a couple of hours once we've provided content. And the key, obviously, for social media is updating, and new content. So, when we would get into this program, which I really do believe we should, it's just a matter of what do we want to post up there? Well, the community resource guide for sure, and then any other news. Which businesses want to interact with this. And then there's a note down here, as an example, which businesses are, and this is difficult, and I'm not sure from the legality standpoint, but which businesses are not just ADA compliant, but are actually accessible. And what I mean by that is there are some diners, as an example, and restaurants that say, oh, well, we're ADA compliant, but I can't get in there because their step is 4 inches, and I have to go around all the way to the back and then go through their kitchen if I'm able to, if it's wide enough, and then go through, sort of the washing area and then hopefully not bump into too many people. So, it would be, as an example, on the website or on Facebook. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's not you're right. I mean, people are coming up with these areas that they think are accessible, but do not comply with the state statutes. That's what needs to be done in order for it to be ADA compliant.
I don't want to jump ahead too much, Elder, but that was part of what Sacred Heart was looking to do, like a walkable tour of Fairfield and really get a good look at what is accessible and what's not, not just because they say
yes,
so.
I remember
Want to talk a little more about that?
Yeah, I remember us talking about that for sure, and that's definitely a project. I didn't want to go too far on it, but I was just thinking about the Facebook page about, being able to list, retail locations and restaurants and whatever it is that are, I guess, accessible in a different way than ADA compliant.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would list them in terms of badness, but maybe feature one a week about which is really accessible and makes it a welcoming place for anybody coming in. We could highlight in a positive way.
Yeah. Not the companies that aren't, but the companies that are. Like there's a restaurant, Sinclair, in the middle of town. Yeah. And I've been there, a whole bunch. Fortunate I met the owner, blah, blah. And they could not be more accommodating I've never been to the bathrooms, so I don't know what that's like, but they could not be more accommodating to seat, me in any place possible, in all of their restaurants, in Malibu, in Sophie's Kitchen.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
If I can just throw it, I think we need to have an idea of what in fact accessible is, and have points down in fact the width of doors, the whole bathroom, and if we're saying they're compliant, they need to be compliant. Not just, I don't know what you want to call it. Thinking the legality of ADA.
Well, I think the thing I would worry about, Karen, is being a punitive commission, because we do have the ADA compliance officer, who's Tom Bremer, and he's the person who's to address, structurally non-compliant. I think I would hesitate to point out those, or maybe we send people his way.
Karen, there's also this is Dan Van Horn. There's something that I've been learning, that in trying to build culture or shape culture, what is celebrated gets repeated or replicated. And so, like that idea, I think, of highlighting businesses for like, hey, we love how you did this or that through social media, I think that becomes something of a campaign where it builds more momentum in town around, here are the things that the town is celebrating. We're celebrating the fact that there's, I don't know if it's zero depth entry, but like it's ADA compliant, there's an easy access to the building, to this awesome restaurant that, delivers great food and service, blah, 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 whatever it would be. And I think the more, like if it's our goal to build awareness around those things, I think we're going to see over time this culture build in town where these are the things that are celebrated and repeated, rather than, we say we're ADA compliant, but we're not really. Like that stuff will hopefully begin to dissipate.
Completely agree.
We could send that. We can send the compliance. We don't be involved. We do know if places aren't.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
That he could handle.
Yeah, he typically will be coming to these meetings, so that's definitely an avenue that's available to us.
Great.
Which is great, and I think you're both right, and Dan, thank you for highlighting that. The answer is yes. We don't want to be negative. We want to be positive on everything that we do and everything that we promote, because it's not our position to throw somebody, down the stairs, if you will. It's our responsibility, as we say, in the goals and in the, our charge is to highlight and make it more accessible. Well, by making, to increase accessibility, you highlight what is accessible now, and then you hope that other people follow. So I totally agree, positive versus negative, which brings us to the ADA gentleman. It would be great for him, if possible, and I think this is obviously through you, Julie, if he could come and maybe give us a half an hour conversation or discussion or presentation about what is specific to ADA top line that we should know about as a Disabilities Commission.
Yep.
I don't know all the factors that are involved and what what means compliant and what doesn't. And then it would be great if he happened to have a list of those that were ADA compliant, so that, that's a public list, not a punitive list, or it should be a public list, not punitive, and then we can just have that listing on the site or Facebook also, or in the community resource guide, or whatever it might be, the digital form. But it would be great to know more about ADA, because I don't know enough about it.
Yep.
It's very inclusive and very involved, and there are people that actually provide support on that, but I'm just knowing of people that charge, unfortunately. And the other thing, it's not all physical disability issues. It's not all buildings. It's there are sections on hearing impaired and what the town needs to do to ensure that people who are deaf or hearing impaired need. So, there are different areas of the ADA that take a lot to learn.
Yep, you're right. You're exactly right.
Great point. Okay, so one of the initiatives that was to be considered is, should we go and attend either, telephone or in person town board or commission meetings, and then provide feedback to the group? Would people be interested in doing that and listening in, and then taking notes or top line, from the Affordable Housing or the Housing Authority, Park and Rec, town planning and zoning, lots going on with that, obviously. Economic development, which we mentioned before, bicycle and pedestrian. Is that something that the folks on the phone or in person think is a good idea, and would you be willing to be involved?
Good idea. I'm not willing, though.
I think it's a great.
Go ahead.
Well, as I heard in the background, a good idea, but, difficult to be involved. Maybe we can just cherry pick. I think economic development might be very interesting. And then, affordable housing or maybe town planning and zoning. I think, I'd like to understand myself more about economic development, but I think town planning and zoning is really key. I'm in a building right now, the Trademark, and I'm across from the Alto down by Fairfield Metro Station. And when I went to go look for apartments I guess it was about 9 months ago, I went to the Alto and then the one over where next to BJ's, and I said, okay, great. Can I renovate the bathroom or the shower so that I can roll in with my wheelchair? And everybody said, no, we don't offer those packages. Came to the Trademark and they said, you have to pay for it, but the answer is absolutely, go right ahead. I said, all right, how am I going to get in and out of the buildings, with my key fob and all that? Well, you're going to have to push the door, or you're going to have to open it in your electric wheelchair. Trademark said, you know what, we can auto-program your key fob so that the door opens automatically. I bring that up because, A, that's interesting from an ADA standpoint, but also it would be interesting to hear whether or not town planning and zoning, how they go about providing these approvals.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Isn't there a building department that must approve all building plans and throughout the town as they are put up, or is it new buildings?
Julie, is that the Housing Authority or is that town planning?
That's planning on zoning. The Housing Authority is more about senior housing and apartments and that kind of thing. Something that could help in terms of narrowing down the number of meetings is just kind of getting a sense of looking at what the agendas and the minutes are of these groups. And if we're interested in, if there's something coming up in planning and zoning for something that is a big project that's coming up, paying attention, and then when that is on their agenda, then making the time for it, or sending in an email saying, as the vice chair of the Commission on Disabilities, this is important to me because, we can have an impact. It doesn't have to be every meeting, but we could certainly pay attention to what subjects are coming up on each of them. Affordable housing just finished their master plan. There's a way to do it that's not overwhelming and everybody feeling like they have to get to every meeting, because nobody has time for that.
But yeah, I have a question. Does town planning and zoning, are they aware of the state statutes dealing with disabilities? Because
definitely.
If these are new buildings that are going up, and they are approving it without approving ways for folks to get in, that's not good.
Right. I think they're either obliged to follow that. It may not be to the standard. They also did a disservice to Alder. Did they ever imagine that he would have that cool chair that would help him get up the stairs and get up a ledge, but not be able to go into a bathroom, that, like, there's things that they just.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, there should be an expert dealing with these people who are aware of all the access issues and physical access issues. I'm not talking others, but
Right.
I don't understand why.
This is Marty. I'm the liaison. But I just wanted to point out that I believe all public buildings need to be ADA compliant, and I would think it would be the building department that would oversee that.
Right.
That's
right.
what I asked. That's exactly what I asked.
Yeah, no, and then they do. I think there's, legally they have to
Right.
address those issues. So I think it would be good, especially as these new apartment buildings are going up, or these new buildings in the area and new housing. It'd be great to pay attention what projects are coming down the pike and looking to see where we can have an impact.
And that would be with the building department, wouldn't it be with the building department?
It's one of the departments, definitely.
This is Dan.
I'm sure that they are ADA compliant.
Right.
That I believe that's the responsibility of the building department.
Yeah, it is. It is. According to
I think, as we all know, though, that ADA, there are levels, right? There's a baseline level, which really doesn't take into account, as an example, somebody with an electric wheelchair.
Right.
Or somebody that is visually impaired to a certain degree, or even hearing impaired. But there are baselines. And what would be great is if there was somebody with a disability on the buildings department, as a liaison or as a consultant. But I know that's not the case. But we're not trying to change government. I think we're just sort of opining about it now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know Dan had something.
There are parts of the ADA that deal with motorized chairs and what should be available in a building, and visual impairment. You'll see on elevators they have the brailled and highlighted floors and that information. There are specific parts of the ADA that deal with all these issues.
Right.
It's not just part-time. It's all, the whole thing needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. This is Dan. I just wonder if we have I'm blanking on the name of the gentleman now, I apologize, but the gentleman who's the ADA compliance officer.
Tom Bremer.
Tom Bremer, thank you. I wonder if we want to kind of have just a running list of these observations we make as we go about our business that we can pass along to him, because he's actually in the position where he can do something about it, where we're more of like a kind of bring awareness to it as we go. But I think where this conversation was starting to go, Shannon, thank you for your courage of saying, I like the idea, but I don't think I could do it, is that we have limited time and resources. So maybe we should just narrow down to a couple of priorities that we want to focus on in this upcoming even 6 months, with the goal of knowing, like, we want what these next 6 months achieve, give our town government more like desire to see this commission continue on. So almost like saying, what are the things we can make headway on that is enough encouragement to First Select Women and the rest of the leadership to say, yeah, we need to make this a more permanent commission. I think that if I understand correctly, the first thing we sound like we need to do is clarify extend the survey, update the resource directory, and then create awareness in town as to what's going on through social media. I think if we come across businesses in the process that are not ADA compliant, we can put them on a list of, hey, we want to pass this name along to Tom Bremer, who he can do something about it for us. But our focus is still on raising awareness in town and getting a handle on what the actual needs are in town, so that we can go back to the town and say, hey, this is really a commission that needs to continue because of all these needs we're able to identify.
I love that. I do think one of the survey questions could be, are there any businesses in town that have made great strides in ADA compliance or being welcoming to all, and
Yeah.
So we could ask that as a survey question and feature one.
That's a good one, because then that could also lead to us being able to highlight them later on.
Right.
And yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But do you think that Tom would come and speak to us?
He typically comes each meeting. I think this is the first one he's missed. Well, this is the first one he's missed because we haven't met in a bit. So, typically he's here. He's come to a few. He came to the very first one. He was on a call with with another one. So he's pretty good about that. And, certainly he reads the minutes. So we can,
Well, in that case, this is Dan. I really like Tom Brother. Hopefully that goes in there.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
But no, we can definitely, and it's, it's something that, maybe we have a call with him in advance of the next meeting to just talk about what kind of information we're needing and how we could best deliver that to him and receive information back in these areas,
And perhaps
That'd
he
be
can look
great.
for us information as the ADA coordinator, could give us a presentation on what it all entails.
Right. That's a good idea.
I think that would be helpful to the commission.
Okay, good. All right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think getting, Tom to, lay it out for us in layman's terms, the top line, and then allow us to ask the questions such as what you were just bringing up, is in our best interests. Because if we don't know, then we don't know.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. That's great.
And Dan, thank you for summing those points. I mean, you're exactly right. This commission wants to be a committee, and we need to show progress, and that is awareness, and moving on. And I think the resource guide, the Facebook and promotions of that, all 3 points that you mentioned are critical.
And hopefully they'll lead to more priorities that we can build, that we can kind of choose to pursue coming out of those things as well.
Yeah, I think there should be a lot of great insight and feedback after the survey.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I have to say, I really appreciate everybody saying that the survey was done in wonderful good faith, but does not serve our needs. I was looking at that and I was like, I don't want to sort of, within the first 5 minutes of me fortunately becoming chairman, I don't want to bash, all the work that happened before. And I was involved in it. I helped create the survey, but, there's so much more we want to learn. And now that we have other target audiences that we can actually reach, which is I'm not sure what the folks at Sacred Heart really understood was the breadth and depth that we wanted to that we need to get to. Otherwise, it's kind of in vain. So thank you everybody for
exactly. I totally agree. Just to throw a word in.
Didn't want to bash them, but thanks to Dan, they got bashed.
You're welcome.
Kidding. No, it's a good thing.
The questions are great. I just think we want to ask more people a question.
Right.
We want to hear more.
Yeah, I'm just kidding because I like to mess with Dan, but I think I think this has been a great meeting so far. There's really nothing else on the bullet point list that we haven't touched base with. Everything is kind of ancillary, but I think that before we get into the final bullet point about the next schedule, that this has been a great conversation and some incredibly, pertinent points, very salient, but very emotionally charged, because obviously we're all involved in this in our own personal ways. So, I want to thank everybody for, being so conversational. A lot of people sort of be quiet and they stay in the background. It's wonderful that the people on this line are not that way, because that means we'll get something done.
I agree right now.
Right now, but later. So the last thing on the list is just to touch base on the next meeting, which I'm just going to that page right here.
Right, we've got to approve the meeting schedule for the year because that goes on the town website.
Yes.
Okay.
So, I'm good for the 14th, March, May, July, September, and November. That all works for me. Does anybody have a problem with those dates? They're all on Tuesdays.
The second Tuesday of the month?
Yep. And
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
how is 5 o'clock?
It's workable, I guess. I'm thinking the people that work, and could they get there by 5?
Yeah.
This was probably,
Well, I have to say that if they joined the commission or they were, put on the board, and this was
Right.
part of it. We were not going to have meetings every night at 6 or 7 o'clock. In fact, I think the original meetings were at 4 o'clock. So,
Right.
if they either want to be on it or they don't, and, we'd love to have them, but if they don't, then we appreciate what they've done so far. But I think we also have to look at, if we don't get people to be involved, then, we have to talk with Julie and whomever else. Do we need to elect other officials?
Right. Okay. So the calendar looks good to everybody? No complaints? So I can put that up?
Approved by me.
Great.
Terrific. Julie, are there any department updates or any other business to discuss?
I don't have other business, but I do have 2 updates for the, one is not for the department, for the town. The town hired its first licensed clinical social worker to work in the police department.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
a police officer and a social worker. She's phenomenal, but she is trained in crisis intervention, and she will be that person who goes out on mental health calls, or if somebody has an invisible disability, that she'll know how to go in and de-escalate, and she's working very closely with our staff, and it is such a gift.
She's part of the crisis intervention here?
She's part of the police. She will be, but she's already made an enormous difference, especially for us. And the other,
excuse me, what was her name, please?
Her name is Jessica Bloomberg.
do you know if she's doing any work with the Judicial Review Board by chance?
She is.
Awesome.
She is. And she will be doing that too. Yeah, so Juvenile Review Board, obviously police, she's working with us. We get a lot of police referrals, and this will be a way to kind of not even split them up, but just direct the ones to us that are more appropriate for us to handle from social services and an emergency or a crisis. And the only other thing was that today I attended a webinar on service animals. The ADA of Connecticut had this great program. They're willing to come and talk at meetings, and not necessarily about animals, that's one thing, but about anything that we should have questions about or want to learn about. I thought it was great. I'm going to get the PowerPoint. I'll share it with all of you. That's an issue for us in this building because the difference between, it's new to me. I have a dog, but, it's not trained. Whether something is an animal is a service animal or a support animal, and what can come in the building and what can't. So it was great. I'll be happy to share those resources with you, and the ability to go to some of those as they come up. I'll be better about sending that out to you.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, it really was great, and it's great too because it's other departments from the area on it, and also some commissions. Like Westport was there. So, I think that's something that we could really grow with them because they're trying to build it up.
Terrific idea.
Yeah.
If I just may say one last thing for the minutes, I would love to get Tom to talk to us.
Tom Bremer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Me
Yep.
too. Me too. I think that's perfect.
Okay. Yep. And hopefully he'll be able to come to our March meeting.
Yes, that would be, the next one would be great because, that can help us kick off a lot of things, if you will. Fill in a lot of blanks, which I certainly have. And then we can also not air our grievances, but ask salient questions about why, when, where, and why not, so we understand.
Right, but I do want to remind you guys that we are not the complaint board. We are not gathering.
No.
On what needs to be fixed. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Definitely not. No. This is not to air grievances. My feeling is it's not to air grievances to him. It's to ask him questions so that we're not ignorant.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I love that. So the last thing, elders, just to see if there's public comment, if there's anybody on the line who has a comment.
Is there anybody on the line?
Oh, I'm on the line.
I'm on the line.
Yep. Okay, so no members of the public at large then?
Oh.
No, sorry. No.
Okay, perfect. All right, so
No,
then.
I was smiling when I said that. All right, terrific. Well, thank you, everybody. This was wonderful, and thank you for the incredible honor of being, upped to chairman, and so happy that Dan is vice chairman, and that everybody is so involved. I think now we're going to create some momentum, and even if it's just us as a smaller group, I think there's a lot we can do, and I really do appreciate it.
Yes, well said, and thank you for stepping up. So the last thing is a motion to adjourn and then a second and a vote.
Could I just
Is that what I
say that,
said?
could I
Go
just
ahead.
remind people that the next meeting is February 14th at 5 o'clock, so they can make note of it now? Just
March 14th.
Yeah, March 14th.
Oh, March. Sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, we don't meet in February?
We don't, we're every other month.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Well,
All in favor?
Okay.